All right, we're going to begin now, and we're going to start with the flag salute, and we have some students from Joe Mitchell who are going to lead us in the flag salute, so if you'll please come forward. The flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That helps us remember what we're all about. I have some business to report out from closed session. Today, the board met in closed session and agreed on item 2D. The board voted 4-0 to approve an agreement between the family, AL, and the district. The substance of the approved agreement is to fund the cost of compulsory education for a high school student, which is to be completed by December 31st, 2015, at a total cost not to exceed $6,000. And that was the action that was taken in closed session. And we had no expulsion items. And, oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for that. We unanimously approved the superintendent's evaluation in closed session. Okay, this is a meeting of the Board of Education of the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District, where our primary focus is the education of students of this school district. During the meeting, members of the public will have the opportunity to share information and voice their ideas and concerns regarding matters within the jurisdiction of this public agency. During the board's discussion of each item, there will be time for you to have the opportunity to speak on that item. If the topic you want to address is not on the agenda, although not mandatory, we would encourage you to fill out a tan speaker card, which are available in the lobby, and you drop them off over here. And you will be called to speak on that topic during communications for the public. If you wish to address a topic that is on the agenda, we encourage you to fill out a blue speaker card. Again, it's not mandatory to do so, and I will call your name in no particular order to speak to the board for no more than 3 minutes, as otherwise noted. These meetings are televised, so everyone's looking very good, bright and eager. You can see yourself on TV on cable channel 28, Wednesdays at 7 p.m., and if you want to skip the cartoons, Saturday at 9 a.m. So thank you very much. And that brings us to changes to the agenda. Do we have any changes tonight, Madam Superintendent?
Thank you, Madam President. Actually, we have 2 recommended changes to this evening's agenda. So first of all, out of respect for teachers and staff members who need to get home to prepare for another exciting day of school, item 10A, approval of 912 new and updated course descriptions. We are asking that that would be heard immediately following item 10A, Common Core State Standards. So moving up an action item to earlier in the agenda with the information items before we proceed. And then also on 10A, approval of 912 new and updated course descriptions. We're asking that one course be withdrawn for further consideration. It's the volleyball bowling course description, and we are planning to do some reworking with that and then resubmit it at a future meeting.
Thank you very much for that. And that brings us to recognitions. Would you like to introduce the first recognition this evening?
It's my absolute pleasure. We will start with the principal of Joe Mitchell K-8 School. That's Dr. Laura Lembo. I believe she's here with us. And she is going to have the honor of introducing and recognizing some very important members of her school community.
Thank you. It is truly a pleasure to recognize what I call our VIPs at Joe Mitchell School, very important people. Our school wouldn't be the same without them. The first is Julie Ring. She's our current PTO president. And I have to tell you, as a new principal to Joe Mitchell and to the Livermore area, Julie Ring was so gracious by inviting me to a meeting that she held in her home, which allowed me to introduce myself as the new principal and also provided me an opportunity to get to know the Joe Mitchell family and community. That meeting was the first of many that I believe exemplify a quote that was made famous by Margaret Mead. Never underestimate the power of a small group of people to change the world, because truly, in fact, it is the only way it ever has. And so I say, over the past 2 years, it is clear to me that Julie has put her heart and soul into everything for our students at Joe Mitchell School, and she supported all the work that we have done to become an IB candidate school. So this recognition tonight is in honor of the countless hours and work that she has done as our PTO president. Julie Ring, will you please join me? Got one or two, so I'm the new one. Okay, and my second VIP is Josephine Willier, or as we affectionately call her, Josie. She is one of our playground supervisor. She is an amazing individual. She knows every student by name, and she makes sure that they know every day that she is so happy that they are here at school with them. Even before I have a chance to introduce new students that have enrolled to our campus, she's already connected them with other students in their classrooms to make sure that they feel connected from the very first moment they set foot on our campus. But beyond playground supervision, Josie's very active in our Joe Mitchell PTO. Every Wednesday, you can see a line right behind the ice cream stand where Josie is selling ice cream. In fact, I will tell you that students come from Mendenhall and Granada every Wednesday to enjoy ice cream and say hello to Josie. Okay, this is how long she's been doing this. It's a tradition. This year in particular, she went above and beyond all of those responsibilities and shared information about her home country, the island of Yap. She actually did an assembly for our students. She showed them pictures of the stone money that she has grown to know. But sadly, Josie has completed her education and she's moving on. And as her daughter moves on to Mendenhall, she will be greatly missed. Of course, we wish her the best and thank her for all that she's done, but I will tell you that Joe Mitchell will not be the same without her. Josie, will you please come forward?
Oh, we appreciate everything you've done. Thank you.
For our next recognition, I see that Mr. Scott Vernoy, our Director of Student Services, is here, and he will do the honors of a very special introduction of members of our community who go above and beyond to make sure that our students have everything they need and more.
Good evening, Madam President, Superintendent Bowers, members of our board, community. It is my honor and pleasure first to introduce Kat Arthur, nurse extraordinaire, who one of our wonderful nurses and health technicians who will be doing the recognition for tonight.
So thank you for having us. Most of all, I want to thank our 4 dentists in the audience tonight. We appreciate you coming. I also want to acknowledge that there are many others in our community that help us with our kids in the dental world. We are very fortunate in Livermore to have this service that we can provide for our students. These dentists in Livermore come and they provide free dental screening on their day off to 5 of our elementary schools. This is a huge service, for one, because it's a state mandate to have a dental screening. And plus we recognize dental caries and we can help these kids. Plus they provide services for our kids when we find a need, and especially when we find kids in dental pain. I also want to say how fortunate that these kids are able to have a lasting impression and hopefully walk away from this experience realizing that their community cares about them. So thank you very much, and thank you for continuing to work with us. We are very honored and very appreciative of your services. So I'm going to call out the 4 that are here. Like I said, there are many others, but thank you. So Dr. Tony Alvarez. Dr. Deanna Aronoff. Dr. Ron Freeman. And Dr. Tom Marcel.
We appreciate it. Hi. Really appreciate all your help. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you so much.
Could I say something?
They've just reminded some of us that we have to go to the dentist now, so we missed our checkup.
Mrs. White.
Yes. One time I went to my dentist and I said, do you participate in the health care and the dental care for our students? And he said, oh yes, those kids are so wonderful, they're so cute, and they just smile so much. So I'm sure you get some positives from helping our students too, and we're grateful. Thank you.
And for last but definitely not least, I'll ask Mrs. Amy Robbins, our Director of Curriculum and Special Projects, to come forward. And I believe that she's responsible for a lot of our audience here, because these are our new teachers and our teacher induction program. And I believe Debbie Burkle might be joining her.
Good evening, President Runyon, Superintendent Bowers, and members of the board. I would like Debbie Burkle, a teacher on special assignment in the curriculum department who coordinates our TV tip program, to please come forward. Debbie coordinates many of programs and projects within our department, and she definitely coordinates the TV tip program, and we're here tonight to recognize our students, but I also personally would like to thank Debbie for all that she's done to help us with professional development, to help with the coaching and the mentoring of all teachers, and especially those here tonight. So thank you, Debbie.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. It's always wonderful to come at this time of year and be able to recognize the teachers that we have been working with. TV TIP, or the Tri-Valley Teacher Induction Program, supports 189 teachers this year. And in Livermore, we had 22 Year 2 teachers, 12 Year 1s, and 5 ed specialists who have completed 2 years induction and are currently working on completing their information for their ed specialist credential. Our focus with these teachers have to do around pedagogy and universal access, such as equity issues, working with our English learners and our special population. This year, our coaches have worked with our teachers, particularly around the Common Core and the instructional practices that are important in making the shifts to the Common Core. In doing so, the teachers have worked with their coaches on lesson plans, instructional practices, analyzing student work, and many, many other things. This information is part of the state mandate for induction programs. and their work with their coach has accumulated over 75 to 100 hours in the past 2 years. And this is meetings with their coaches as well as observations of their classrooms. Coaches, on the other hand, wear many, many hats. They are their teacher's confidant, they're a resource provider, they're a listener, they're an instructional leader, they're a data analyzer, and they are professional development extraordinaires. So at this time, I would like to ask our Year 2 teachers to come up. I will tell you that they have met all of the requirements, their portfolios have been reviewed, and they are now eligible for their professional clear credential. So would our teachers come on up and form a line behind me, please? In the past, we have had several of our teachers tell you just a little bit about their experience, but we thought tonight what we would do is we do something that we encourage teachers to have their children do, and that is to reflect a little bit on the closure of a lesson. And one of the strategies we use is called a whip, and that means we go around the room very quickly, and they tell us using one word or a short phrase something that they have learned. So I've asked each one of them to come up. They're going to tell you their name, introduce themselves by telling you their name, their site, where they teach, and they're going to complete this sentence. My word tonight is compassion.
Hi, my name is Nathan Colgin. I'm a resource specialist at Croce Elementary School, and regarding the students I work with, my word is resilience.
My name's Jameson Gavin. I'm at Croce Elementary. I'm the inclusion specialist, and my word is feedback.
I'm Christina Howard. I'm at Croce. I'm the 2nd and 3rd grade special day class teacher, and my word is fulfillment.
My name is Jenna Joseph, and I teach English at Del Val High School, and my word is patience.
Hello, I'm Ashley Midwood, and I teach at Christensen Middle School. I'm a 7th grade core teacher, and my word is passion.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Burdine. I teach 1st grade at Sunset, and my word is passion also.
My name is Jill Canfield. I teach 1st grade at Smith Elementary, and my word is patience.
My name is Signe Muzzy. I teach 5th grade at Jackson Avenue, and my word is encourages.
My name is Carly Wiedmeyer. I teach English at Del Val High School, and my word is innovation.
My name is Danielle Romero. I teach 5th grade at Rancho Las Positas, and my work with my students is motivating.
Hi, I'm Paulina Pinheiro. I teach agriculture at Livermore High School, and my word is exhilarating.
Hi, I'm Allison Atkinson. I teach 5th grade at Croce Elementary, and my word is understanding.
I'm Andrew Slavic. I teach social studies at Granada High School, and my word is exhausting.
I'm Tiffany Gatehouse, and I'm an English teacher at Granada High School, and my word is essays.
I'm Donna Lee. I work at Junction. I'm a 6th and 8th grade science teacher. My words are lifelong learning.
At this time, I'd also like to invite our coaches to come up. Kim Ortiz, who was our TV tip director. Peggy Berger, full-time instructional coach. Heather Bateson, full-time instructional coach. Denia Sechrist, who we're privileged to have her supporting a few of our teachers in TV tip. Stephanie Bias, who is retired and has graciously come back to work with 4 of our teachers. And Elaine Hildebink is not here tonight, and she supports one of our teachers. So, Nathan, if you will start around for a handshake.
So if we can have the groups that have been recognized come up, we're going to get a picture. Yeah. We're going to start with the Joe Mitchell group. The dentist will be second, and then the TV tip third. All right. Okay, that's good. All right, I'm going to take about look. Just to make sure. Very good. Thank you.
So when I look at this group of young teachers, my words are, I'm getting very old.
Well, what a wonderful way to start our meetings. We appreciate all the good things that are going on in the district. And that brings us to our student board member reports. Haley, would you like to start?
Good evening, Superintendent Bowers, President Runyon, and Board Trustees. We are now in our final month of this 2013-2014 school year, which is really crazy that it's already coming to an end. In sports, our softball team is the number 3 seed heading into NCS for the postseason, and they're playing today, so best of luck to them. And our baseball is the number 5 seed heading into NCS, and they're also playing today, so we wish both of our teams best of luck. Our boys swim team took second in NCS, and they also set a national high school record in the 400 medley, so we're very proud of them for that accomplishment. Pamela White won the 100 meter and 200 meter races in the e-ball championships, so congratulations to Pamela. Greta Kolmus and Casey Soltis are the recipients of the Olympian Scholarship for Granada, so congratulations to both of them on their athletic and academic accomplishments over their past 4 years at Granada. We're so proud to have such talented and kind-hearted athletes at our school, and we wish them the best of luck. In academics, AP testing is over, and we would like to congratulate all students who took AP classes. We are sure that they performed very well on all of their tests. The Recognition Committee and Leadership will be hosting a lunch to honor all AP students on their academic accomplishments this year during the week of June 2nd. More details will be available soon. Smarter Balance testing is over, and we are glad that the transition went very smoothly. We're looking forward to using this new method in the future and glad that it went smoothly this time, so there's no trepidation over the next coming years. Mr. Matador was held Friday, May 9th. It was a great turnout and it was a really wonderful event. We'd like to thank all of the participants and those who attended the show for their support of Granada Fights and the Jimmy V Foundation. And also congratulations to Jake Trevithick, who was our Mr. Matador winner. Our Spirit Week was held last week and we had a really great display of spirit from both student and staff. It was ended with a culmination in a rally, and that was our Battle of the Sexes rally. It was a lot of fun, and there were a lot of great games pitting the boys and girls against one another, as well as awesome performances from our shooting stars, our hip-hop club, and the dance team. In upcoming events, every 15 minutes will take place on Wednesday and Thursday for juniors and seniors at Livermore and Granada. This event serves to educate students about the very real consequences of drinking and driving, and we hope that it can really inform students about all of the ways that this can really ruin others' lives and their own, and to really take caution when they're considering these decisions. The 50th anniversary event will begin this Friday. The golf tournament will be held this Friday, and it is accompanied by a dinner that night following the event, as well as a downtown celebration. So many of the different vendors downtown, food and shops, will be available, and they'll be celebrating the 50th anniversary celebration. So we encourage you to go downtown Friday night and see what all the stores have to offer regarding Matador Spirit. On Saturday, there will be a variety of tours and events occurring in GHS starting bright and early at 7 a.m. So there will be tours and informational meetings inviting you to look at Granada's history and all their accomplishments. So these events will be followed by a celebratory dinner banquet at the Shrine Event Center. On Sunday, there will be wine tasting tours and class gatherings. So we hope to see you all there throughout the weekend one way or another to celebrate 50 years of excellence at Granada. Mrs. Wolf, Mr. Juicy, and Mrs. Kajiyama are retiring following this school year, so we'd really like to thank them for all their dedication to the students of Granada throughout the years, and we wish them the best of luck in their retirement. Our leadership class is still in the process of planning the Kindness Week to be held the week of June 2nd through the 6th to close out the school year on a positive note. Leadership is also planning a Spirit Week for the week of June 2nd to the 6th, so we can really end the school year off on a really great note with the week full of school spirit and activities and also kindness. Our Powder Puff practices are still underway and details are being finalized for the games to be held on Friday, May 30th, but we encourage everyone to come out and support the Powder Puff players as well as the boys cheer and dance teams beginning at 4 p.m. on that Friday. Our clubs, Interact is held their annual car wash on Sunday, May 18th to raise money to send solar cookers to Afghani refugees. They had a lot of success and they're really near to their goal of the amount of solar cookers that they hope to send and create a sustainable lifestyle for the Afghani refugees. DECA will be holding their annual car show on June 6th, and we encourage everyone to come out and check out the cars on display. They'll be on display all day, beginning in the morning of that school day and through the afternoon, through 3 o'clock. Our Red Cross Club held a blood drive on Thursday, May 15th, and we had a great amount of participation from students and community members. So it was another successful blood drive, and we're really proud of Red Cross Club for continually holding records in Northern California for their amazing participation in blood drives. So that's all that's going on for now. Thank you.
Thank you. And Sarah?
Good evening, Superintendent Bowers, President Runyon, and Board of Trustees. At LHS, we're getting near to the end, but our students are making sure that they're busy, dedicated, and really staying involved on the campus. Our sports, we're having many of our sports start their NCS process in their first round. Today, baseball had their NCS game at home, along with softball having a game today, but it was away. And also, track has their first round of NCS on Saturday. So we're very excited, and we look forward to them doing really well. Baseball varsity should be closing soon, so I'm excited to hear the outcome of that game. Our 2 Olympian scholarship recipients are Andre Caston and Alexandra Hernandez. As Haley spoke about earlier, it's really hard to be a great athlete and maintain good grades and stay involved, so we're really proud of those students, and we look forward to hearing about the great future that they are leading. As most spring sports are wrapping up their season, they're also having banquets to honor their athletes for their dedication during the whole entire season. We've had a lot of athletes shine, freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors. It was all across the board, so we're really happy that they're being recognized. Last week, we had the honor of having Congressman Eric Swalwell visit LHS. It was very inspiring and interesting for students to meet him. All the students felt very honored and felt very, I guess, honored that he was reaching out to his community so much, as a lot of students don't necessarily know their congressman by name, and now they do, and they feel very touched by Congressman Swalwell. The 12th annual Fiction and Diction event is going on as we speak. It is an evening where students can listen to other students read poetry, short stories, and novel excerpts. It is put on by the amazing Mr. Cabasino every year. A little bit about Mr. Cabasino. He's an extremely dedicated teacher at LHS. He's the NHS advisor, debate club advisor, Verbivore coordinator, which is our literary magazine, and also the book club advisor, along with teaching AP literature and composition and honor English to sophomores. I don't understand how he does it, but he does everything full-heartedly and is such an inspiration to his students. And speaking of book club, their book drive is currently going on and will be ending next week. So for anyone who's watching and would like to donate some books, you could contact Mr. Cabasino. Every 15 minutes, like Haley spoke, will be happening or commencing tomorrow at LHS. It is in cohesion with GHS, City of Livermore, Livermore Police Department, and the Alcoholic Beverage Commission. Tomorrow will be the crash site day where students will watch the accident unfold. Throughout the day, many students will be pulled out of class, symbolizing the loss of a fellow student every 15 minutes. The spring production, The Early Modern Millie, was a huge success as the community loved it, and may I say that many community members came to see it more than once, as it was an amazing show. This Thursday, choir will be having their pop concert, where they perform music from popular culture. I encourage you all to come and see it, as it is their last concert of the year. On May 30th, Tri-M will be also having a spring concert, and it will also be their last concert, so I encourage you to see that one as well. Something interesting and really cool to see our science classes doing is that our honors physics classes will be doing their Rube Goldberg projects, and we've seen some really cool and interesting ones through the past year. Last year, a student created one that at the very end smashed a pomegranate into pieces, not symbolizing anything at all, but but it was really cool, the creativity that comes from it. In leadership, our junior class of 2015 will be holding their senior farewell fundraiser, which allows other students to write farewell letters to their favorite students, and it will be delivered to them at their senior breakfast on the day of graduation. So it's really cool to see the impact you've had on younger students. Senior ball tickets went on sale about a little over 2 weeks ago, and at the current timeline we're at, ticket sales have succeeded all past years at this benchmark. Senior ball will take place at the beautiful Claremont in Berkeley on the first Saturday of June, being June 7th, which is something LHS has created as a tradition, as an annual date that they've had the past 4 years. So it's really something to look forward to, and as the year is sneaking up on us, it's really something to look forward to. Seniors next week will be heading off to Disneyland bright and early Wednesday morning. Next Tuesday, there will be a senior-only Spirit Day for students to represent their future college, trade, or vocational school, or if they're going into the military, or just their future overall, anything they aspire of doing. And for now, that concludes LHS current and ongoing events.
Thank you so much. And that brings us to employee associations. And I see Mrs. Fields just coming right up.
Good evening, President Runyon, Superintendent Bowers, members of the board. I love this time of year. It's a time that we're all very, very tired, but it's when we get to see the fruits of our labor, both in the classrooms and as we celebrate the accomplishments of our many staff members. Celebrating our TV Tips teachers' successful completion of 2 years culminates 2 years of very hard work, dedication, and self-reflection. And hopefully this is just the first part of their continuing journey of being both professional educators and lifelong learners in Livermore. We have a really good crew, and we'd love to see them stay on for a very long time so that down the road at a future reception, we will be able to honor their years of service. Tomorrow, we get to have one of the highlights, besides the first day of class. The second day, that is my absolute favorite, is the retirement reception. And it is so heartwarming to see the many teachers and staff members that have worked in our district over the years come back, and it's like the best of all class reunions, because you get to see the many, many years of service and love given to our district over time reflected in the faces of the people, and to be able to honor them and to be moved by the many years of dedication they have given and the lives that they have touched over the years. It really enforces the strengths of our district. It is all of us working together that makes this such a very special place to work. And we, from the support staff quietly operating in the backgrounds to those within the classroom walls, are the essential people that provide this quality education for the students in our community. And besides the celebrations, it is also a time that we are looking at student work and what they've accomplished over the years. This week we have elementary teachers knocking themselves out, preparing their classrooms and their students for their open house. And not only are they working to make sure that everything is just so that everybody's work can be highlighted in its very best light, they're also preparing for visitation of very special people. The principals of the day will be coming on the very same day that the teachers are having open house. So this is kind of like a heightened tension time, but they're approaching it with great anticipation and excitement so that they can show off what they're doing every day in Livermore.
Thank you. And that brings us to communications from the public. Communications from the public is a time for the public to comment either in writing or verbally on any item that is not on the agenda. The board may listen to the comment and ask staff clarifying questions, but they will neither discuss nor take action at this meeting on topics that are not on the agenda in accordance with the Brown Act. And I have a speaker card for Mr. Bueno and Mr. Wenzel. Oh, just Mr. Bueno.
Madam President, Superintendent, and trustees, my name is Craig Bueno, and despite being in my 11th season coaching football, where I'm straight from today, and I'm not going to apologize for my attire, I'm coming straight from practice, but tonight the G I'm wearing represents Measure G, and it represents all Livermore kids. And I'm here to give you an update. The campaign is going well. It's a great initiative. We have a lot of community support. But we do need help. We need the community to stay engaged. This is an extraordinarily busy time of year for parents. Having had 3 sons go through and graduate from the K through 12 here in Livermore, I can tell you I know this is a busy time. The election is on June the 3rd. I know absentee ballots drop around May the 5th. You can carry those in or you can drop them off at any polling station. But we need you to cast your ballot. We encourage everyone to vote. It is just a little point that some people may overlook this time. The ballot is heavy. In other words, there's 3 pages to the ballot, and Measure G is the last item on page 3. So when you mail your ballot in, for those on TV who are watching this, it takes 2 forever stamps so that it doesn't come back to you and that your ballot counts. Or you can simply drop it off at any polling station in our state. So if anyone would like to help, you can go to YesOnG or livermorekids.org. We would love small donations and large to cover the basic cost of our campaign. It's a very humble campaign run by all volunteers, just a bunch of caring parents and teachers and everyone off duty and everyone just doing the right thing to get about 4% of the school's budget so we can keep those small class sizes and pursue our STEM and the other endeavors that are helping our kids. And our family benefited from a good school district, and I think that's the basis for all these people giving back. It's a really good thing, and I encourage everyone to vote, and vote yes on Measure G.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you. Mr. Ogie, is there any correspondence this evening?
Madam President, we do not have any.
Thank you. And that brings us to information discussion items. And we're going to start with Common Core. Would you like to introduce that?
I would love to introduce Mrs. Amy Robbins, welcome her back up to the podium. And She's our Director of Curriculum and Special Projects. She will be providing an update on the California Common Core State Standards for math. And it looks like Robin Schlichter will also be helping.
Good evening again. Tonight it is with great pleasure that I bring forth our Common Core Math Report. And as our superintendent said, Robin Schlichter, our teacher on special assignment who is serving as our math coach K-12, will be joining me and helping with the presentation. So we've heard multiple times over the last 2 years about our outline or our roadmap. We are mirroring the state's roadmap for our transition to the Common Core. Last year was our awareness year, and in June, as you remember, of 2013, you adopted the Common Core standards. This year has been our transition year, a lot of work focusing on the standards specifically, looking at how we will be teaching those, what the standards have us doing and teaching, and looking at some of the instructional shifts that are occurring or that we're being asked to implement based on the Common Core standards. This year in the area of math, we've had intense professional development continuing with our middle school teachers and our high school teachers, and really focusing at our elementary level. And many of the examples you'll see today are really going to have us question how instruction should occur across the grade levels to really prepare students with a strong mathematical foundation for algebra in 8th grade or 9th grade. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. And then next year is our full implementation of the Common Core state standards. So looking at math and our math students across the board, we really do want to develop mathematical thinkers. And so we're looking at how do we introduce mathematical thinking and reasoning at a very young age, really spending a lot of time with number sense and building that foundation. And so when we look at the Common Core standards, what we know about them specifically for math, they are internationally benchmarked. The instructional shifts are focus, coherence, and rigor, and we'll talk about those in greater depth. Really looking at problem solving, engaging all learners, developing a deep conceptual understanding, and working on fluency. And Robin will talk a little bit about fluency. Fluency is not necessarily how quickly you can regurgitate the facts, but how deep and quickly you can apply the information. So Robin, I asked you to talk about the 3 instructional shifts outlined by the Common Core in the area of mathematics.
The first shift is focus. And in looking at the mathematics taught in other countries, we realize that with less topics, we can actually learn more. So that's the international benchmark piece. So at each grade level, there's a focus topic. So we need to maintain our instruction on fewer topics so that we can allow more time to make sense of the mathematics. A lot of the topics have stayed the same at each grade level, with a few shifts like multiplication not being introduced till 3rd grade, fractions being introduced at 3rd grade, and statistics and probability being introduced in the middle school. The second shift is coherence. Coherence speaks to the idea that math does not consist of a list of isolated topics. We can take advantage of the focus to actually pay attention to sense making. Topics within each grade level have been designed with coherence in mind. So for example, in grade 3, you were working on multiplication and addition, but you're also working on area to support the idea around multiplication. Coherence is also built grade level to grade level. So you see in the standards how what one grade level is working on will be applied and built on in the next grade level. Rigor challenges us to teach more than how to get the answer, and instead support the student's ability to access concepts from a multiple of perspective. With the conceptual understanding, it'll support the fluency and the application that are required. Each grade level has required fluencies outlined within the standards, and this allows us to access the conceptual understanding and build into the application. And the application is not just word problems, but it's actually why we're learning the math. It's how we apply it in the world. And so it's the application that we can use to enhance the conceptual understanding and the fluency. So it all kind of ties and works together.
So our standards are outlined with content standards per grade level, as well as mathematical practices. And so here is a diagram that shows you the domains and progressions from K-8. And as Robin said, many of the concepts have remained at the same grade level that we have taught with our California mathematics standards, with a few changes moving back and forth content between grade levels. So K-8 is mapped out by grade level. This year, Math 8 is in the Common Core, which is a new set of standards and a new course outlined for us per the standards. When you get to high school, it isn't as clean as far as the courses are outlined with conceptual categories. So you have the content standards for number and quantity, algebra, functions, modeling, geometry, and statistics and probability. So what is included in the Common Core is an Appendix A, which provides guidance when you're assigning those conceptual category standards to a given course. So our teachers are looking at our algebra course, our algebra 2, our geometry, our statistics, our calculus, and really using the guide of which of the conceptual categories and which standards from those we are putting into our courses. And so that's going to be continued work on which we're going to focus. And so the standards of mathematical practice are infused and overlaid throughout the content standards, and they really are developing habits of mind for mathematical thinking, making sure students are really persevering and engaging in problem solving, that they're able to reason abstractly and quantitatively. We really are looking to have student voice in our mathematics, so constructing arguments and being able to critique their reasoning, which connects well with our focus area this year of being able to support with evidence, either verbally or written. Looking at how to model with mathematics, how to apply tools, making sure that we're attending with precision, and looking and making use of structure. And our last mathematical practice or habit of mind would be looking and expressing in the repeated of reasoning. So as Robin mentioned, we're really focused on exploring math through different lenses. And so I'd like Robin to talk about most of her work and focus with all of our K-12 instructors is really looking at how do we instruct math and introduce multiple methods of solving problems and facilitating mathematical thinking. So Robin, could you talk about the benefits of multiple methods?
Multiple methods allows us to have a variety of experiences with concepts, building from the concrete or very conceptual level all the way to the abstract. And it's important that from the hands-on that we're doing with addition or multiplication and building it all the way to the algorithm that we all use, the learning experiences that are provided in between those should connect the learning so that kids can really understand what those algorithms are talking about. So multiple methods allows us to do just that. So we're going to go through a few examples of some multiple methods.
And these are elementary examples to really hone in on the Common Core and the emphasis on number sense and developing mathematical reasoning. So get your scratch paper ready. Robin is going to give you your first assignment.
So Martha bought a box of cookies. When she opened the box, there were 6 small packages. Each package had 8 chocolate cookies. How many cookies did she have in all? Solve this problem using at least 2 methods and explain your answer. So this very first method is using an array. And often when we begin with multiplication instruction, we start looking at groups and sets, but also building arrays. So you see here we have the circles are representing the cookies. So she has 6 columns of cookies with 8 cookies in each column. So 6 groups of 8 is 48. Moving on from there, we can link our skip counting that we've been working on in 2nd and 3rd grade and connecting it to the idea of multiplication. So on a number line, which is used throughout Common Core state standards, we can do 6 jumps of 8 to get 48. And equal groups is another very conceptual way to introduce a multiplication. So again, here we have our 6 groups of 8, so we know we have 48 cookies total. And similar to the number line method, just using a regular skip counting, we can count 8 6 times, and we can get 48.
And here's my favorite way.
Bar models are a way that we can represent relationships. So again, here we are showing that we have the total amount of cookies, which we don't know. And that is equivalent to having 6 packages of cookies with 8 cookies in each package. So now altogether we would, we can add that up and get that we have 48 cookies total.
And here's another problem with addition.
So in looking at the traditional algorithm that we all use for addition, you're adding 500s and 900s, we get 1400. So we put down the 4, we carry the 1. Now we're adding a 1, an 8, and a 2, but really you're adding 1/10, 8/10, and 2/10 to get 11/10, or 1 and 1/10. So you put down the 1, carry the 1, and adding your 1 column. 1 plus 2 plus 3 would equal 6. So there's a lot of confusion that happens with the traditional algorithm, because when you're carrying the 1, it's a 1, but really in the 10th column it's really a 10th. So eventually we want students to be fluent and understand the traditional algorithm, but there's a lot of understanding and conceptual understanding that goes behind the algorithm. So we're going to take a look at a couple of other methods that would support that understanding. This is using modeling or base 10 blocks, and kids would have experience using these in the classroom. So the tiny dot that represents 100th, I might be working with the little squares in my base 10 block kit. The 10ths would be my rod, and the 1 would be my 100th flat, but in this case we're using it as a 1. So you see in the hundredths column we have our 500ths plus our 900ths. So we have we can make 10. So we're recognizing that 10 of one place value is equivalent to the 1 of the next place value to the left. So I put down my 4 and I move over my 10th. So now I have 10 tenths plus another 10th, 11 tenths. So I put down my 1. I regroup to make a 1 whole, and now I have 6 wholes, or 6 and 1400. Partial sums is a great method to connect what you're doing with the modeling before you lead into the traditional algorithm. So in the partial sums method, you can start at the left or start at the right, because you're emphasizing what you're adding in each place value. So in the first addition we did here, we added 2 plus 3 to get 5. My tenths column, we're adding 8 tenths and 2 tenths to get 10 tenths. And I just wrote it as 10 tenths, which is equivalent to 1. And then 500ths plus 900ths to get 1400ths. So now I'm not doing any of the carrying yet. It's all written within my work, and I can add those 3 together to get my answer.
And many of our students, as you probably are well aware, as far as placeholders and keeping the decimals lined up, they struggle with that. And so it becomes that we're really just going through the algorithm just with rote memorization of what do you do first, what do you do second, what do you do third. And these few methods really are building the understanding of why you do that. You're not a robot just going through the process. Why are we going through that process?
Decomposition is another great method, and in this case we're decomposing, which means breaking apart the numbers, and then recomposing the numbers. So we're decomposing to the place value in this example. So we broke down 2 and 8500ths to 2 plus 8 tenths plus 500. We broke apart or decomposed 3 and 2900ths to 3 plus 2 tenths plus 900ths. And now we're emphasizing the like terms, or in this case the similar place values, which leads us to the thinking that we need to collect like terms when we're adding solving equations in algebra. So we're adding the whole numbers, 2 plus 3 to get 5, 8/10 plus 2/10 to get 1, and 5/100 plus 9/100 to get 14/100. And then again, add to get 6 and 14/100.
And so you can see this is building a solid foundation for algebra, where you're grouping like terms, and just the structure of the problem looks very similar to what you might do when you're solving an equation in algebra.
And the last strategy we're going to look at for the addition problem is on using the number line. And in all of the work that I've been doing the last couple of years at the elementary level, I think the number line has been the strategy that most teachers are like, oh no. But by the end of the year, the teachers come back with such positive feedback. It has changed what's happening in their classrooms. So in this case, we're starting at 3 and 29/100, but you could have started at the other number. Kids have a choice in that. And you're adding the 2. In this case, we jumped one whole number at a time, and then added in increments. We added the hundredths first. 5 and 29/100 gets us to 5 and 30/100, or 5 and 3/10, and then we can continue to add to get 6 and 14/100. The bottom part just shows some questions to make sure that we are checking to make sure that we are adding every jump that we needed to make sure we added the 2 and 85/100.
And so the multiple methods are prevalent throughout the Common Core, and they're also going to be prevalent in the Smarter Balanced Assessment. So we have a few examples of some assessments, and really what we're pushing teachers to do is, instead of assigning 30 problems and having students do all 30 of them, let's assign 4 problems and have students show how they would solve it in a couple of ways, and articulate via writing on their assignment which method they preferred and why. So here's a sample assessment.
So in this problem, we have Michael has 11 marbles. 7 of the marbles are black, the rest are white. How many marbles are white, and which models can be used to solve the problem? So the real question is asking about which models are we going to be using to help us solve. So by having a variety of models, we're getting a closer idea of the student's understanding of what's happening. So we can see in A, we have 11 marbles. I have one 10 frame plus 1 on the second 10 frame to make 11. We have 7 that are black and the rest are white. So A is correct. In B, we have on one end, we have 11, and we're counting back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 jumps. So that would be the 7 black marbles, and we would land on our answer of how many are white. So B would be correct. C, we are going from 7 to 11. So that would tell us that we had 7 that are black. We're counting up to look at 11, so we could also use C. In D, using a bar model or the part whole is very similar. So we have the total, black is 7, white is 11, but it said that the total was 11, so D would be an incorrect solution. E, again, it kind of looks very similar to A with the 10 frames, but it without the 10 frame piece to it. So we'd have to count up, we have 3, 7 that are black and the rest are white, so that would also be and in F, the last one with 10 frames, we see that we actually have 11 that are white and the rest are black, so that does not match our description. This problem would be a 3rd grade problem. It's 17 times 12. And it shows the different models for multiplication, and multiplication and area are closely tied together. So you can see in A and D, they're using an area model with base 10 blocks as our tool to do that. So A is the correct, our factors are the dimensions, the product is our area, so we have D is correct. And then we have 2 number line solutions for B and F. B, we're going to assume that that's correct because we're jumping. We're going to assume that it's 17 jumps of 12. And F is 3 jumps of 17, so that's not correct. And then E and C are looking at how to use the distributive property. So we can use the idea of decomposition and decompose 17 and 12. So E would not be correct because you would need to multiply 17 by 10 and by 2. And so we would need to make that 1 a 10. And then again in C, our place value is incorrect in that problem as well.
So on the Smarter Balance assessments, we will have students have multiple correct answers. And so you will choose, just like this, which ones are correct. Is A correct, yes or no? B, yes or no? So it is really important that our students are being instructed with multiple methods for multiple reasons, because we do want to engage all learners. And you can see how a spatial person may prefer the bar models, or people who are just adventuresome and kind of independent in their thinking might like the number line because it gives them freedom to jump how they would like. So there's definitely different learning styles that the multiple methods are targeting, which will build a stronger foundation in mathematical reasoning.
This example shows a technology-enhanced item. So a student would be using the computer and they would drag the shapes or match it with the name. So this shows that there's a variety of activities that we need to be engaging our students in our classroom. And we can do what we can in the classroom, but technology is definitely going to need to be a piece that we incorporate into our instruction and our assessments in our classroom.
So looking at that work in the professional development, and as I mentioned, looking at the standards, there isn't any materials we currently have in the district that addresses the Math 8 Common Core course that's outlined as in the standards. So this year we began going through the adoption process and had a committee to look at our middle school textbooks. We wanted to start with Math 8, and it made sense since it's in a sequence to do 6th, 7th, and 8th, leaving algebra for next year because with the Common Core, algebra is outlined as a 9th grade course. And so we compiled or formed an adoption committee with several teachers, administrators, Robin, and a few other members. And we invited our algebra teachers at the high school level to make sure they were part of this discussion because it is clearly a continuum of learning, and we wanted their input, and we wanted to make sure that the textbook would help prepare our students for algebra. So in March, the committee went to the Alameda County Office of Education with a very well-developed rubric that Robin and a few others created, and looked at all the materials that were on display there. And the feedback from the publishers overall was how impressive our group was because of the questions they were asking, as well as the rubric that they were utilizing to rate and record their thoughts and opinions of the materials in front of them. From that, the results were reviewed and analyzed, and we invited 4 publishers to present to the committee. And then after that presentation, our middle school teachers, 10 of them, began piloting with 2 different publishers. So we currently are piloting with Big Ideas and with College Board's Springboard Mathematics. And so at the conclusion of the pilot, we will be bringing forth the committee's recommendation for your approval for our Math 6, Math 7th, and Math 8 course instructional materials to support with the Common Core. And with all of that, we know that the materials are just that the teacher is the one who makes the difference and really leads the instruction in the classroom. So making sure that we wrap around the materials with professional development, continued support from Robin, and then again, making sure the collaboration is occurring K-12 so that we are adhering to the focus, the coherence, and the rigor. So our next steps would be continued professional development at all levels. Looking at next year, the structure that we've put in place for elementary, where we have 1 kindergarten and 1 first grade teacher from each of the elementary sites to engage in once a month day-long professional development with Robin leading, looking at different materials and different resources to support our teachers across the grade levels. K-5 and 9-12 teachers are very eager to look at the state's recommendations for their materials. And then along the way, making sure that we recognize that there are some shifts, and we want those shifts to occur because we truly believe that that's what's best for our students. So making sure that we really increase our parent outreach and our communication. We began that with our first district math parent university, which Robin coordinated, and we had Phil Gonzalez and Drew Craven present. It was hosted at Granada High School. We had quite a few attendees. I would venture to say probably approximately 150 parents that attended, and really it is neat to see the excitement build around math, and that the Common Core is leading us in a direction that we as a district will take and definitely do what's in the best interest of our students. So we're going to leave you with a problem, 91 minus 48. And then we have a little picture that if you know what the square root of -1 is, you can read, as I love math. So Robin worked with second and third graders today for the entire day, and they did a wonderful activity with this problem, 91 minus, or take away 48 from 91. And there's some notes back there on the board. But I wanted Robin to display the product of one of the groups to show you the continuum and the multiple methods that they would use, and how something like this would be beneficial to have in the classroom. And I know it's hard to capture on the television, but if Robin could talk a little bit about what is in front of her, that would be helpful.
So what we did today at our professional development with teachers is we looked at the standards in subtraction from first grade through fourth grade, and that allows second grade teachers to look at the grade below them, and third grade teachers to look at the grade above them. And we talked about the continuum of learning. What is happening in those grade levels in the area of subtraction, and how can we take kids from the conceptual level all the way through the abstract? And the idea about multiple methods allows kids to make the connections all along the way, from the very concrete hands-on to the algorithm. So after discussing the standards, I had teachers work in groups and create a problem and show the continuum of learning that they could take their students on. And this might be the course of several months or even a whole school year in their classroom, as they work from really understanding what subtraction is, the regrouping piece that is happening in second and third grade, and how am I going to support the understanding. So those misconceptions, we can catch those by using other methods and connect it along the way so that we can get all students proficient with the standard algorithm. And teachers at the end of today really enjoyed this activity that we did today, and some of them are going to be putting similar posters up for open house to show families what we've been doing with multiple methods in their classrooms.
There is much more that we can bring forward to you regarding math at future dates, but that concludes our Common Core Math report for this evening.
Well, that was very informative. I'm sure my fellow board members have some questions. Dr. Dunlop?
I only have one question. This is great learning for understanding how the math works. When you go to algebra, the issue is always how fast can you do the arithmetic and get on to solving the problem. And so the issue will be, how in the process of learning this, are they going to be ready to actually just realize that looking at two numbers, the answer, and so that they won't spend an inordinate amount of time just trying to figure out the arithmetic associated with an algebra problem versus solving the algebra problem. So that's the only worry I have in this, because if you're really trying to do a test fast, it helps if you just can do the arithmetic with basically what we've learned is by rote. So the issue is getting past or to that point where we can, where the students can do that very quickly and then concentrate on the algebra part of the problem.
Mrs. White?
Get your answer? Or
No, but
It was a
that's
comment.
a question that I have, and I don't know
It
if
is
there's an
something
answer
that we
yet.
want to continue to focus on, and I can tell you with the multiplication, I mean, we really are getting students to be able to visualize how to solve those problems and solve them fluently and efficiently without having to write it down. So there are multiple ways, and one of which is really to be able to visualize the algorithm and to find other ways to solve it. But that is something that we continue to focus on because you're right. We need to be able to do it with fluency.
Mrs. White.
Well, you know, in the olden days, there were a row of subtraction problems that my two sons had to do, and there were 2 or 3 rows of them, and you had to do them in 2 minutes. And one of them was easy, my son said, because, well, the third row's like the second row that you just copied, so that needed a little reworking. I was at a CSBA activity this weekend, and there was a lot of concern about whether the districts were teaching Common Core grade 8 in grade 8 or accelerating in middle school so that the 8th graders took algebra and then had access to calculus in high school. You talk about teaching that the things that they're piloting will teach Common Core grade 8. Could you tell us the plans for teaching algebra and the appropriate acceleration to get 8th graders to take algebra?
So we do have an acceleration path in the middle school. We do want parents to hear loud and clear that because of the depth, even if your child is in Math 8, they still are and can be on the UC track. So we're working with the high school to look at what do those courses look like to make sure that if you're on grade level track, you still have the opportunities and options to get to UC and CSU. If you're on the accelerated track for middle school, there's a couple different options. Looking at the Common Core in Appendix A, it outlines an acceleration track where really you would take Math 6th, 7th, and 8th, those 3 years over a 2-year period, which would allow you in Math 6 to have Math 6 standards and cover half of Math 7, and then in Math 7 you could have half of Math 7 and then the Math 8 standards, allowing you to be on the track for algebra in 8th grade. So there are options, and we do have those paths that we're working with our middle school teachers as well as our administrators to outline, because we want to make sure that we're meeting all students' needs. And while we want to change the mantra of just cover it all as fast as you can, we really want people to slow down and make sure that with the transition to the Common Core, with the standards looking differently, and with the mathematical practices, we really do want students to get that depth, and we're not in a race to get to the end. But yes, there is an acceleration path in middle school.
I think we are so fortunate that we have a unified district, because some of the districts that are unified with feeder elementary districts that come into them, or several elementaries feed into a high school district, really have issues. And I'm glad we're not there. But and you know, maybe it's not obvious, but if you don't offer the calculus option to seniors, you're really foreclosing so many college options for them if they want to pursue a degree in science and engineering and such. And we don't want to do that. And districts sometimes don't look that far ahead when they're considering what to offer 8th graders. Thank you.
Mr. Rogi. Well, I have a couple of questions. I guess kind of echoing Mrs. White, I look at the methods and I get it, because I've tutored a lot of kids in math in the last 10 years, and I use a lot of these methods, especially with kids who've been failing, right, that you need to do some intermediate steps. When I look at that and I think about my own kids, I think my kids would be tearing their hair out in 2nd grade, because you're asking them to repeat things that they've already mastered. So what are we going to do for the accelerated students who don't need this, that have mastered the subject matter, and you're asking them to show multiple times the same problem? They're going to be going bonkers.
Well, and that's even before the Common Core, and especially now with the Common Core, we really want teachers to differentiate and to make sure all students can contribute and thrive. So using these multiple methods with the appropriate content difficulty to make sure that we are differentiating. So it's the expectation that we're individualizing instruction as much as possible, because we want all students challenged. We want those who need the intervention in place to have the intervention, but also the students who are math students to have the opportunity to not do the drill and kill and the repetition, but to be challenged and to move forward. So looking at differentiation with the Common Core, what that looks like to make sure that all learners' needs are met.
So I can't remember whether both my kids or just one of my kids took algebra in 7th grade. And, you know, we had a big push to make sure that every one of our middle schools had geometry available so that kids that were prepared and ready to go to geometry were able to do that. So now it sounds like that's not going to be a possibility. Am I wrong in that?
So we are hoping that the students who are currently placed, when we transition and fully implement the Common Core, that they will continue on that path. So if you entered 6th grade this year and you skipped 6th grade to be in 7th grade, we will not change paths on you unless the parent and the student and the administrator agrees that that's what's best. So looking at, instead of skipping content, showing mastery. So what that may look like is take an end of the year assessment, and look at more quantifiable data to show that you're ready and that you've mastered. So instead of just skipping, so we will not have 6th graders skipping 6th grade math. We will not have 7th graders skipping 7th grade math. What you may do is prove that you've mastered it so that there is no need to sit in the classroom if you have mastered those content standards. So does that mean that we're going to continue to offer algebra and geometry at the middle school level for the students who are prepared and able to test into those courses? As long as the demand is there, we will work on meeting the students' needs. What is important, though, with us is looking at the students and looking at the Common Core and making sure students have mastered a concept or that grade level, those skills before they move on, because we really do not want students racing through and then getting to the higher level maths and struggling.
Right. And then on page 3, you were talking about the Common Core high school standards, and it triggered a thought in me. So much of what students have to demonstrate in high school is not around the state standards anymore. If you're college bound, you're going to be taking an AP test or an IB test or the SAT or the ACT. How are these going to be reconciled with the nationwide tests?
Good question. We'll follow the College Board's lead on our AP and our IB, making sure that we are well aware of the direction they're moving, and we'll follow suit.
So we don't know yet. Is that?
It's a little gray.
Okay. More to be revealed.
Yes.
But what we do know is that Common Core type focus and teaching with a more creative and innovative way of looking at everything and reasoning and the higher levels is much more in line with what's tested with IB and AP. I think the difference now is it's not this kind of thinking and stretching of the students' critical ways of looking at things and applying it. That used to be the exclusive domain of some of the high-level courses. It's just now all kids will get that. I think that's the difference that I see. So I think there is going to be a closer match than, because if you did well on the CSTs, that didn't always translate into SAT and AP. If you do well with the Common Core testing, our sense is, with this smarter balance, if you're doing well at the highest levels of that, you're going to show mastery in an easier level. It won't be so different.
And we would like to see the enrollment in those courses increase, and with a stronger foundation at the earlier levels, then more students will be able to obtain that.
Yeah. And then I just have some really positive feedback for youth. I mentioned to our Rotarians in the Ready tutoring program about the parent development, and 3 of them went, and the feedback was extraordinary. They were thrilled with the content and the availability of that kind of instruction for parents and the way that things have changed, so that when you send the kids home, the parents know the methods that the kids are being taught in school and way to think about it, because it is very different from the way that most of us were taught. Even if it is more effective, people have to have some grounding in it. And so I think you did an excellent job, and I wish I'd been able to be there myself, but I was thrilled to hear from my fellow Ready tutors that they got a lot out of it. So thank you very much for that. So And are there any comments from the public? Thank you very much. And I think that brings us to the course approvals. We're taking that out of order, if you remember.
And so actually we're going to continue with Mrs. Amy Robbins, our Director of Curriculum and Special Projects, because she will be presenting, and I believe she has folks in the audience helping her, our staff, to present new and revised course descriptions for your approval.
Good evening again. We have two staff members, Carol Kennard and Keith Pickering Walters, who will be joining us up front to talk about our 9-12 new and updated course descriptions that we're bringing forward this evening. Unfortunately, our agricultural teacher was not able to stay to talk about agricultural chemistry, which is a new course that's being proposed this school year. The description, as you've seen, is a one-year course that will be submitted for lab science credit. And agricultural chemistry is really looking at chemistry through the lens of agriculture and to help round out a pathway that we have occurring currently at Livermore High School. So agricultural chemistry would allow students to study the content through the lens of an interest to them, which is agriculture. Students will be engaging in hands-on laboratory studies and activities, and it really is looking at the 21st century career relevant skills. So making sure that what they are doing in courses, the course gets connected to the skills that they will need if they choose to pursue a career in the field of agricultural. And this is Carol Kennard's course. Carol is an outstanding teacher from Granada, and she is bringing forward tonight game design.
Hi, thank you for inviting me to come and present my course, game design. We are redesigning our computer science department in general at Granada and at Livermore too. But at Granada, we are proposing a game design pathway, a 2-year program. And game design may sound like fluff and play, but it's actually the study of mathematical model of conflict and collaboration between intelligent, rational decision making. A more apt name might be decision science, but then what kid would sign up for decision science when they can sign up for game design? So the course is actually related to, or game design theory is related to political science, economics, biology, psychology, and of course computer science and logic studies. 8 Nobel Prize winners have been game theorists, and we will be studying variations of all of their work. In particular, we're going to be studying game and logic theory. We'll be learning a lot of variety of programming languages. We'll study and develop storylines, determine goals and objectives, use predictive outcomes, use strategic forms and matrices instead of official. We'll use normative analysis for how people should behave, and extensive forms for how they could behave. We will do character development and design, graphics and animation, 3D modeling. We will develop community-based and socially and ethically responsible games, so to speak. So it's more encompassing than just making the video game that we probably all see playing today. It's a 2-year pathway, after which the students will be able to become will be able to participate in internships and eventually become 2D and 3D animators, multimedia artists, computer game designers, developers, programmers. They will be able to be game testers, and the exciting part is a new branch of computer science, simulation design and development, big data and everything that works around predicting outcomes of large data, stuff that scares us from the NSA. But I go off on a tangent. So it can also lead to a full-blown career in computer science, and it will be replacing the current game programming class, which was the programming element of this broader topic. So we'll be archiving game programming and turning it into a 2-year pathway. 1, 2, 3.
Our next course is a revised course, and we have another Granada teacher, outstanding teacher Keith Pickering Walters, who will talk about his studio broadcast productions course.
Thank you very much for having me. This is really just a slight change. In the past, we took studio broadcast and broke it into intro and then studio broadcast, and we found that didn't really work with how the state wants things. So we've put it back as studio 1, 2 now. So students will take the first studio broadcast productions class, which is really the training to be able to do the actual show and whatnot that we do. And then they'll repeat 2 as many times as they want to, and we'll have 2A, 2B, and 2C, so they can take it in the fall, winter, or spring trimesters. And then they can continue that and repeat it for credit as much time as they want.
And then a few of the courses which the teachers were unable to be here to talk about. Our next course is AP Music Theory. So looking at our AP offerings and our students who are really into our visual and performing arts. This course offers a 1-year advanced VPA credit and really has students participating in the skills that they would need for success as they continue on with AP Music Theory. So they're looking at deep understanding of music, different aspects of music, the history of music. So it's a really rich course to engage students in conversations and research and really elicit that 21st century learning and thinking that needs to occur at the highest level. Then we have 2 foreign language courses. I know Livermore High wanted to be here desperately to talk about their Latin course. There's a lot of students and families that are interested in the offering of Latin. And so looking at Latin is a 1-year course. It's a language course. It would introduce and have students exploring the structures and roots of Latin. And it has students looking at Roman history, geography, and mythology. This is what I took in high school as well, so it really does help translate with vocabulary and deepen learning. Our last course for the evening is a revised course. It's our AP French Language and Culture. It also is a 1-year language course, AP status, so we're following the College Board's guidelines for AP. And it's our 4th year of French that we offer and really has students immersed in the experience and requires the use of French exclusively in class. So this is our highest level course to really develop bilingual students in the area of French. So that concludes this evening's presentation of new and updated course descriptions. I ask that you take the superintendent's recommendation to approve the courses, and we have teachers and myself here if you have any questions.
So does the board member have any questions? Mrs. White.
I just thought that the book list for Latin was remarkable. When I took Latin, it was Latin for Americans Book 1. Second year was Latin for Americans Book 2. And that was it. None of this, the original dysfunctional family, which they're going to have to read. And I thought, oh my goodness. It sounds like a quite interesting course.
Mr. Rogie?
Yeah, I like all the course outlines. I'm really interested in the agricultural chemistry. I think that's a great one to go into. I'd be a little bit behind since I was reading The Modern Farmer lately and how they're already doing this, and we have one of the biggest we have the biggest farm show in the world down in Visalia, where I was watching farmers. They were using, there's a whole array of test tubes and everything just to raise cows, and it was just fascinating to see how upscale it's all gone in education. Just to be a farmer, it's not the old green jeans and move poop around. Although, I could say that when I went to that show, have you ever been to that show? That 3/4 of that show is just for that, which I found fascinating. Anyway, the game design theory, is that going to be more game theory, or is it? I was kind of, you didn't really say that it was going to be a game theory class, but it encompasses so much more. But
in the design of the games, the first thing the students will learn is game theory. Before they even develop any kind of software, they will study game theory and learn game theory. And like I said, the normative, the predictive, all of the different forms of predicting outcomes and trying to get to a logical goal and objective for your game. In other words, it's great to create a game, but if it's not engaging and doesn't behave well, it won't be a success. So it's how does a game behave well? What makes a game versus a story? So it's the theory behind it will be the first thing the students learn, and then they'll go deeper and more extensive into game theory as they learn more about it. So they'll create a simple game, a more complex game, a 2D game, a 3D game, an ethical game, a bad game.
I like the ethical part.
Did that answer your question?
Well, yes, it did. Because I've read so many articles about game theory and how it's being used in so many areas. Stock picks, obviously down in Las Vegas, but the psychology of game theory. Are you going to get into that, the psychology aspect of it, or strictly the programming and?
Oh, no, we're going to get into it. The focus will be on developing actual playable games. We'll start with board games, go into two-dimensional games, three-dimensional games, games with storylines, games with just winning and conquering. So a lot of different styles of games. And then as a rounding out of the curriculum, they'll be doing research and writing papers on the application of game theory. So while they won't become official game theorists, as like an economist might, they will study an economist or a biologist or a politician, works at the NSA, and study their game theory and how it applies to their career. So it'll be a rounding out instead of a focus. The focus will be game development throughout the 2-year pathway, so that they will be able to go out and work for game companies, but they will have a broader understanding of game theory than just making a game or two.
The intro to the studio broadcast, I really do like that. We were at the Make a Difference Awards that were held in Dublin, and they had their broadcast student filming up on the screens and everything, which I thought was a great, well, not an internship, but a great experience for them, because there were so many people and they had to be on top of everything. So I was wondering if there's any chances of getting those kind of internships or those kind of things, like having kids coming over here and running our broadcast.
It's possible. There's a lot of aspects of what we do. One of the projects that we're working on right now is with the Rotary, and so we're looking. I've got a group of students. They came in and pitched an idea to my students, and so they had a discussion with them. And a group of my students took that on, and it's totally blanked on the name right now. But it's basically Beyond High School. Actually, I think that's what it's called. It's Beyond High School. And so they're working on a website and a Twitter account and some other social media aspects, and they're interviewing people in their careers and looking at what they did in high school, and then what got them into their careers and where they're kind of taking it now. And so they're going out on location and shooting at their work site, as well as interviewing them either in our studio or at their work site, and then developing that into a short video that will be able to be shown to other students, have it on the website. They're looking at branching it into FIT classes so that FIT would be able to use it. Our freshman in transition class would be able to utilize those as resources and things like that. So that's a project that we're taking on. We did a sample of it this spring, and then we'll be rolling that into next year. Some of the other projects that we're taking on is we're working with a couple local businesses to try to do some sample commercials that, like, the boosters might be able to run on their web pages or on the live stream. Because the live stream is a free choice, people can log into it and watch it. They can do commercials there. When we do our show in class, because we show it during school time, we can't run advertisements for outside groups because of the contained "you must watch this" situation. But there's a lot of other ways that our students can make commercials and do that. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of activities that we're getting into. It's more so just time and resources, and making sure that we can get students in the right places at the right times, and just getting 2 students to film senior ball and deal with field trip permission slip forms and all that stuff is a lot to do.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. I'm a big advocate of field trips when I was, but for different reasons. There are so many places in the Bay Area that are rich in the studios. Obviously, now it escapes me, over at San Francisco. Pixar, there's lots.
There's Pixar and Emeryville, and
Pixar, which is not there, but the whatever. There's so many of them. But there's also Go Pulse Productions, which is Madden's production unit. I mean, there's getting in to see those kind of things, how they're shooting commercials. They do shoot a lot of commercials at Goalpost and things like that. And you just said it's gets to be an enormous pain to do field trips, get permission slips, but we're so rich in that environment. And we do shoot a lot of commercials. There are a lot of commercials, and I think shot in the valleys maybe get kids involved in that. So same thing. And then also with games, I mean, any field trips to the labs, Sandy, look at secret programming that they're doing for, because you didn't mention simulations, and they're...
We've been going to EA Games for the last 2 years as part of our AP Computer Science class, and game design will, of course, go along. And it's a wonderful opportunity because EA, much to my great pleasure, brings in engineers and graphic artists and product managers to come in and talk to the students one-on-one. They take an hour of these very valuable employees' times and donates them to the classes that come in and visit. And the kids can ask questions, and basically they tell them, if you love what you do it all the time. If you're programming, program. If you're drawing, draw. If you're writing, write. You know, do what you love all the time. And it doesn't matter if, well, anyway, I could give you the field trip right now, but we go to EA. Trying to get into Pixar, but the rumor has it they only allow 6 to 8 students per, they max out their size of their field trips to 6 to 8, and we can't accommodate that. But maybe someday they'll open it up to a big number.
Well, it also looks like to me, with just talking to the two of you, that your game that you guys are going to come up at the end of the year and your commercial pushing that game is going to be pretty interesting.
Collaborating for the last year and a half, trying to get this AME pathway going, which includes game design, animation, even music and other. So it's a great curriculum.
And our economics group that'll take care of manufacturing and selling these things and be a business. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Well, Mrs. Robbins and I have been exchanging smiles, and I know she knows what I'm thinking, because I'm sitting here going, man, I wish I were a kid today and got to take all these classes, because these are exciting things that you're developing, and that makes me really happy, because, you know, our kids deserve it, and I am really excited for them and these offerings. So look forward to see what you're going to bring to us next, because I already want to come sit in all your classrooms. So. Thank you.
If there's one more thing I can mention, this weekend, Granada's having... sorry, loose wire. Granada's having its 50th, and we're working on a documentary of the history of Granada, and we've brought in alumni and former students and faculty and whatnot, and we've been interviewing them in the studio, and we're working on a script and the whole documentary piece of it, and we're only touching on a tidbit, and so we're going to be rolling out a short version of the documentary at the 50th, and then inviting everyone that's there to come into the studio and tell their part of the story. And then we'll be capturing more of that and working on a full-length documentary all next year, and hopefully releasing that at the end of next year, or at the 50th graduating class, which gives us a year and a half or so.
Well, wonderful. So we need to take some action on this. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move that we approve the courses.
Second.
And Mr. Rogie, can you call the roll?
Mrs. White?
Aye. I didn't know we needed to have this for the...
Dr. Dunlop?
Aye.
And no students. President Runyon?
Aye.
And myself, aye.
And that passes unanimously. Go on and conquer.
Thank you.
That's very exciting. And that brings us to the charter school oversight update. Would you like to introduce this item?
Certainly, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Chris Van Teck, our Assistant Superintendent of Administrative Services, and he is our liaison with the Livermore Valley Charter School as part of our oversight agreement, and he is going to give you the regular status update.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers. In fact, I am tonight providing the third of 3 reports that the board asked for. As you recall, we began our role as oversight agency almost a year ago, and I did a report, beginning of the year report back in September. I did a mid-year update in January, and this evening I will be providing an end-of-year report. And actually, they just sort of start rolling into each other. So this is the third of 3 this year. As you recall, we sat down with our legal representation, and we did create an oversight checklist, both for our benefit, so that we had a better understanding of what it was that we were going to do over the course of the year, and to benefit the charter schools so they knew exactly what they needed to provide us to be in compliance. We did give that checklist to them, to their chief executive officer and their principal. We went through that line by line and made real clear our expectations for the year. That report was divided into 7 separate areas of compliance that we did just to keep things organized. And you can see them listed. The general requirements has to do with their initial setup and reporting, fiscal and business operations, how they spend their money, how they get their money, how they do payroll, all those sorts of things. Their educational program has to do with the curriculum that they provide students and how they assess the extent to which their students are meeting their goals. Facilities has to do obviously with the buildings that they've taken over across the street from Costco and how those are functioning. Governance is how they run their operations. Personnel is how they hire teachers and how they evaluate teachers and other staff. And then student services has to do with the process that they use to enroll students and try to develop a balance of students demographically that are representative of the Livermore community. So as you recall, in January I delivered a report, and they had met 14 of the 15 items. We had 1 request for item action, and they actually met that. That had to do with our request that they report any changes. They had a change, what we considered to be a substantial change in their charter when they changed the way that they voted for board members, and we asked that all future changes please be run by us prior to being finalized, and they have agreed to do that. In the area of fiscal and business operations, in January they had met 74 of 89 items. We had 8 requests for action. At this point, they have now met 83 of the 89 items, and we have 3 requests for action. We're asking that they keep their website updated on a more frequent basis. We ask that they've created a receipting system in which when they take in money they provide receipts for it, so there's better accounting of funds taken in and funds leaving. And we've asked that they develop a system whereby they can reconcile their budget and payroll, which is a system that we currently have in place, and they do them separately. And so again, they're in compliance in 83 of 89 items at this point. In the area of educational program, they had met 37 of the 44 items in January. There are still 2 future items. One has to do with the LCAP that has not yet been completed. They are required to provide an LCAP and a budget that goes along with that. We also asked that they create a year-long professional development plan. They did share with me that they have professional development, they provide professional development, but they hadn't developed a year-long plan. So they were providing professional development sort of as they went, as opposed to a comprehensive plan that they create at the beginning of the year and then follow through with throughout the course of the year. So we are still asking that they provide us with that for next year. In the areas of facilities, they had met 18 of the 19 compliance items. They had not provided us with permits that they were required to provide us with when the facility opened, and they have since provided those to us, and so now they are in compliance in 19 of 19 items. In the area of governance, as of January, they had met 45 of the 58 compliance items. We had 9 requests for action. This is probably the area of greatest concern, primarily around the area of transparency, providing salary schedules in their board minutes, ensuring that their board meetings were there was proper notification of the board meetings. We had concerns that they didn't have a governance structure that was clear to their stakeholders. There was no clear delineation between the duties of the CEO and the principal and the board, and so we asked them to make those structures a little bit more transparent. They have since become compliant on 6 additional items, so they are now compliant on 51 of the 58 items. And we still have concerns about responsibilities and roles of board members and who's in charge of what. I also have some personal concerns that they hold a number of special board meetings, which sometimes indicates a lack of proper pre-planning. and a need for being more transparent. I think it creates issues for their stakeholders who want to attend board meetings. I know it creates issues for me in terms of attending board meetings because they develop they develop the need for a lot of board meetings at the last minute. And so we're asking that maybe they become a little bit more organized and a little bit more transparent in how they function as a governance structure. In the area of personnel, they were compliant in 22 of 23 items. We did request that the board approve personnel actions. They hadn't been doing that before, and now they are. So they've become compliant in that area, so now they're 23 for 23. In the area of student services, as of January 19 of 20, and the one item was in putting forth what we would consider to be strong efforts to change the demographic structure of the student population. I know that was an issue when their petition came to the board. I guess it's been almost 2 years now, that their student population does not adequately reflect the Livermore community, and so we asked that they undertake measures to try to modify that. They did do a number of things in terms of outreach to try to attract a more diverse group to their school, and so I oversaw that process. I oversaw the process of enrollment. They have a lottery system that I had a chance to see how that worked, and again, so we're feeling as though that their efforts have been apparent, that they're moving in that direction. The impact that will make on their student population is remains to be seen, and it will take a number of years of efforts before they're able to change, because really they're only bringing in kindergartners, and so out of 1,000 students, they only really bring in 120 new students each year. So changes to the demographics of the entire student population are going to take a number of years. But I believe we are appreciative of the fact that they did undertake some outreach efforts to try to make some change in that area. So in summary, they were compliant in 248 of the 264 items. We've created requests for action in the areas of non-compliance. I will state that the relationship between the district and the Tri-Valley Learning Corporation has continued to be very cooperative. They're responsive to me when I ask them for information. I guess in moving forward, my hope is that I won't have to ask for information, that the information will be provided prior to my having to request it. And again, that's still sort of a dance that we're going through in terms of what are our responsibilities, what should they provide us just as a matter of course, and what should we have to ask for. And so again, we're making progress in that area. I still have some general concerns about their governance procedure, about transparency of operations. We're hoping that they become more transparent with their stakeholder population as we move forward. And now that they've completed the checklist for this year, or most of it at least, we get to start all over again. And so the checklist for 2014-15 is now blank, and so we go back to sort of square one and do the whole thing all over again. So in general, though, I'd say that I'm pleased with the efforts that they've undertaken this year to try to become as compliant as possible in some areas where perhaps there wasn't strict oversight in past years. So next steps, they are going to provide me with student achievement data. Again, part of their charter petition was to make gains in all areas for all students, and they are gathering student achievement data for the year. They're going to provide that to me so I can see the extent to which they've actually been successful in that area. We will continue, and when I say we, I mean Susan, will continue to review budget and cash flow just to ensure that they're keeping things on the right track. And again, we will meet with their leadership to review checklists and expectations as we move forward into year 2 of our oversight relationship. So that is report for the evening. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have, or at least attempt to.
Mr. Rogi?
You had mentioned they were doing an awful lot of extra board meetings. Are they staying in compliance with Brown Act and things?
Yeah, and that part of it is exactly that. Yes, they are staying in compliance with the Brown Act, and in some cases they're finding that deadlines, the board has to approve certain items by certain dates, and sometimes if they hadn't pre-planned, they have to call a special board meeting to make sure that they get approval. My sense is maybe in past years they just approved sort of after the fact, and so I'm appreciative of the fact that they're keeping deadlines. I'm just hopeful that as we move forward into the future years that they sort of pre-calendar those items as as is necessary.
As they should.
Yes.
Thank you.
Dr. Dunlop?
Yeah, the issue of monitoring student achievement is a problem right now when we're in transition between, our old test base and the new test base that we're going to develop. How do you hope to work that in this interim time?
They do have some. They have some local assessments that they are using, as we do. They've created benchmark assessments and summative assessments that are theirs that they've created, and so the difficulty with that is I don't have a history of it to compare to, and so I guess in this year where we don't have statewide testing that I can look at and compare to last year, it really is a matter of taking them at their word that these are pre-tests, these are mid-year tests, and these are summative tests, and I'm going to look at their results and see if they've made the progress that they expected to.
If they've been using these benchmarks in past years, or are they going to share that information with you?
Yes.
Okay, so they'll be open on all of the information to allow at least some possibility of assessing that during the next couple of years before we get back to a benchmark. And overall, do you sense that we've had a dramatic improvement in relationship between the two organizations in this year? Is it working well, or?
I mean, I believe so. I believe so. I think that initially there was fear on their part that we were going to become sort of be very draconian in our efforts and look to get them. And I think when we were able to, I know that Mrs. Bowers and I sat down with their leadership team, and when we laid out the checklist and said, here's what our expectations are. We're not trying to get you. We're going to provide you with this information up front. Here are things that you should be providing us with, and some of them are the law, and some of them are the MOU that you signed yourself. There's nothing unreasonable here, and we went through those line by line, and it was a very exhaustive process. But I think at the end of it, it's like, okay, we get it. Here's what you want, and we said, provide these to us, and we'll be fine. And so I think to that extent, there's less of a concern on their part that we're out to get them, and hopefully less of a concern on our part that they're trying to, get around the regulations. And again, charter schools by their nature are freed of some of the regulations, and we get that. It's frustrating that we're not freed from those same regulations, but we get that, and so, but within the game that's been created for charter schools, we're just asking that they play it fairly, and I think this year they have. I'm feeling positive about how the relationship has gone this year.
Good, thank you.
Mrs. White? I guess I'm concerned that they're still not using the standardized accounting software, because around the state, not only do school districts, but other government entities use this standardized accounting software so that people can look at the books and understand what's going on. And one of our ongoing concerns has been fiscal accountability, and it's hard to do fiscal accountability when you don't know what the line items pertain to. So I heard you say that they're not using it, and the slate starts over. What are their plans going forward for using standardized accounting software?
Well, I think they are using standardized accounting software. My reference was specifically to a control mechanism that reconciles budget and personnel. That was our concern.
Oh, just the position control.
Correct. And so that was the thing specifically that I referred to in my report. I know that Susan gets their reports, and I don't want to speak for Susan, but I know that it's perhaps not the same form that we use, but it's an acceptable form. Is that accurate?
It's simplified.
Yeah, they use the charter school version, which is a little bit more simplified, but the account code structure is the same. So if you look at the 1,000 object codes, it means the same thing as our 1,000 certificated salaries. So it is comparable in that respect. It's not quite as detailed.
And that's okay. They're one school versus...
Right.
Okay. So now they're using that, and they're reporting to the county fiscal oversight the way that they're supposed to. Because I know for many years, even though required by state law, they didn't report their financials to the county.
So they send them to us, and then we review them, and then we send them on to the county, yes.
Great. I'm glad to hear it. Thank you very much. Is there any member of the public that wants to comment? All right. And that takes us to the general fund budget.
So now I will ask Mrs. Susan Kinder, our Chief Business Official, to provide to you the regular monthly update, but also she has kind of hot off the press some information that's pertinent from the governor's May revise.
Thank you. Good evening, President Runyon, members of the board, and Superintendent Bowers. So, first of all, our monthly budget update, which we haven't actually done until since second interim, is in your board packet. And if you'll look at the chart that shows the current or the second interim budget compared to the current budget, you'll notice that there is no change to the ending fund balance. So there's really nothing to talk about. Hopefully they can find, there it is. And I'll have to ask Miss Alba to turn the pages for me because I don't have a clicker. Oh, thank you. Thank you. What service? Okay, so this form, right there I circled the zero, so there is no impact to the ending fund balance, so we're still the same, which is good. So yesterday, myself and a couple of other staff and the leadership from LEA attended a workshop put on by School Services of California to kind of go over the governor's May revision, and many of the same, actually most of it was the same themes that were in January. So the economic growth is still slow, but it's progressing. And with that and the passage of Proposition 30, the state has been receiving more revenue, which is a good thing. The governor's priority continues to be to pay down the wall of debt, and the local control funding formula remains still at $4.5 billion, is the same amount that the governor had proposed to put towards LCFF in January. So the major proposals, again, is to maintain LCFF. It's a 0.85 cost of living adjustment, which is just a minor difference from January. In January it was 0.86, so all that meant is like $1 difference. And the gap, which is the difference between current year funding and our target, is still at 28.05%. So basically the same numbers that we used in our second interim in our multi-year projection for revenues. The governor continues to push for a rainy day fund, and he has met with some of the legislative leaders, and they came to an agreement to fund that, and it still needs to go to vote though. So we'll see what happens with that. He's taking on the California State Teachers Retirement System by the horns, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. He's fully funding Medicare enrollments, so that's where most of the new revenues are going. And there's very minor changes to the non-education side of the budget. So the biggest change and the biggest curveball for us is the proposal to fund the CalSTRS liability, the unfunded liability, which is currently around $80 billion. The thing that we knew that he wanted to address this unfunded liability in January, but we were told that he would begin that in the year 15-16. So we were really thrown a curveball by getting this information, 6 weeks before adopting our budget. And what he's saying is that he wants to kick in this new formula immediately, July 1st. And the contribution rate increase would be for all three parties involved, which would mean the state, the employee, and the employer. And so the state, he's proposing that the increase will be from the current 3.041% to a 6.3% over the next 3 years. Employee increase from 8%, what they're currently contributing, to a 10.25% over the next 3 years. And the employer would increase from the 8.25% that we're currently paying to 19.1% over a 7-year period. And so what he's proposing for 14-15 is a 1.25% increase. Kate's saying, I told you so. And unfortunately, what that means to us is it would increase our expenditures about $610,000. So the Legislative Analyst Office, which is a bipartisan unit, has also reviewed the governor's proposal, and what they believe is that there's more money that they believe that there's 2.2 billion more than what the governor has for 14-15 in revenue, and that would be mostly towards K-12 or K-14 education. They do give the governor credit for taking on a very conservative approach. He's reducing debt, he's increasing reserves, and he's addressing the CalSTRS liability, which nobody wanted to touch. If that budget is adopted, obviously the state would be in a much better position to manage the next revenue turn down that could potentially happen. So our next steps are that we're going to take the information that we received from the May revise, any other compulsory items that we know that we need to include in our budget. And when I say that, there's things that we've heard, for instance, cap and gown for seniors. If we want to, in 8th graders, so if we want them to require them to wear cap and gowns, that we do need to pay for that if they are unable to pay for it. And also sports is another issue. If we don't fund something towards sports, it would look like that we are not offering a free and public education.
So, Mr. Manchak, could you clarify? I don't think it's if they're unable to pay. I think we need to provide the cap and gown.
I think we're supposed to provide the option. There are some students who would choose to purchase a cap and gown because they want to keep it, but we can't deny them a cap and gown. They don't have to say that they can't afford it in order for them to get it from us. So we have to provide them with options. One option would be they could purchase if they like to, or they could borrow rent from us. However we want to do that.
So essentially, we need to build in a budget item for it going forward. That's the recommendation from the workshops that we both attended, and so we would, and there's different ways, and the different vendors are all looking into it. And so not to just go into over detail, but just so that you would understand, because it would be brand new to our budget. What ends up happening is, if you get very nice ones, then you would keep them for years, and students would reuse them. But then there's laundry cost and ripping and tailoring, or you get the kinds of the one single use, and those would just be, they're less expensive, but then you're purchasing every year. And we really just need to budget as if every student has one, and then see how many students would prefer to purchase and keep. And it's similar to what colleges have done. So that's just kind of a new one. We want to make sure that you weren't surprised by that item. And then the other one is in the athletic department. The last 2 years, we have put some freed up money from other funds, in order, the other restricted categorical funds, to give each of the high schools $50,000. We've given, and then we've had our foundation supporting the middle school. But the reality is with all of the rulings and things, we need to show funding for at least safety helmets, and some portion of that you cannot rely on donations. So to put those in as line item, and if donations come in to relieve that pressure, that's fine. But we can't build budgets based on donations.
Thank you. So we will have a public hearing on June 3rd for both the local control accountability plan and the draft budget. And we plan on having a board workshop somewhere in between the public hearing and the adoption to establish core values and guiding principles for future planning of our budget, if and when funding does come back to us. And then on June 24th is when we would present the proposed adopted budget that we'll hope you would adopt. And then once the state approves their budget, we'll have 45 days to revise our budget if needed. And it looks like, or from what I'm hearing, is that we will have an on-time budget. I think that has to do with the fact that the legislature won't get paid if they don't do it on time. So that helps. So we look forward to getting a budget on time. And that concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Dr. Dunlop.
Okay, so we kept thinking things were going to get rosy because there was going to be more money, but I noticed that 1.25% of paying into this, the teacher retirement system for the unfunded mandate is $600,000, but out years they're talking about 10%. And that is a huge gouge into the budget, even when we're looking at increased budgets. So this is going to be very difficult, because I think everyone's expecting to see a substantial increase in available money in the district to do a lot of things, but we have this unfunded mandate where we're being asked to contribute a significant portion, and I think that's going to be a real problem politically in terms of working with the citizens who are saying, boy, I thought you were going to get, finally you were going to get out of this budget problem we've had for now starting to approach a decade. So this is really bad news in some sense that and it's nice that they take care of this, because it's, it has to be taken care of, but it would be nice if they found another way to do it rather than putting it right on the backs of the school districts who've been basically going through a terrible time now for many years.
And to add insult to injury, then the employees also have to contribute more, so their paychecks will get
Right,
smaller.
they're going to get hit also. So it's a double whammy in that sense. Yeah, but anyway, that is going to be an ongoing problem that we have. Also, these other mandates of making sure that there is no one left out, which is the right thing to do, is another budget impact that we see across the sports. The issue of going to camp in the early elementary school years. It just seems all of those add up, and that's going to influence and impact what we're able to restore and do as we start looking toward the future. So anyway, thanks for the good news and the bad news. We needed to hear that. Thank you. Bye.
Mr. Rogie.
I recall somewhere in the last 3 or 4 weeks that the governor was adding money for the technical side to improve purchasing of technology, of computers and things.
Yes, but those are going to be competitive grants, so there could be money that if we apply for it, but it's not a huge amount.
So we were funded.
Not a per ADA amount like we were funded last time.
So it's not an entitlement, but it is something we could compete for, and we are very competitive. We're known for being very competitive. So we would definitely, leverage whatever we could to be part of that. Usually in those types of grants, you have to show how you've used money in the past for purposes, and so I think we would have a pretty good track record in that case, showing how we very successfully deployed all of our Chromebooks and had basically zero issues with the state testing system this year. So I think we would have a compelling case, but we don't have a grant writer, so we'd have to look and see if there's a regional approach or get someone on board for that. But we would definitely try for it.
So did we cover all our costs on the technology purchases? I know the state wasn't funding all the money to fund Common Core implementation and technology side of it. Did we come out of general fund for any of that technology?
We used only the Common Core money, but the Common Core money was about 1/3 of what we needed. So basically 40% of the students who were tested received it. So the Common Core money that the state gave us, the 2-year amount, we already committed this year because we had so much front loading to do. And then going forward, what we had heard was that, and what the legislative analyst believes, is that there is more money that could be released, and if it were released, it would be going toward, it would be categorical toward some of these, the Common Core rollout. But there'll be a little bit of political jockeying around, I think, about what the governor is saying and what the legislative analyst is saying about the Prop 98 guarantee and Common Core.
So we achieve one step forward, another step back in so many areas, but I'm looking at down the road and the 2 to 3 year thing for technology, that unless the governor does or the legislator comes up with money to start cycling through our technology, that's going to be coming out of our general funds if we're not writing grants or something else has happened. Because I think all the schools are going to be in the same boat, because we have a 3 to 5 year cycle on technology, and who knows what technology is going to throw at us in the next couple of years. So,
and you'll notice, so this is factual, that Measure G has technology in a large part on that focus. And so our budgets have been built as if Measure G were to be successful. Is that correct?
Well, that would be in the multi-year projection, which we're still working on.
Right.
But it'll come in
So
the
we'll
public
know
hearing.
very shortly if that is, but that is one area of focus was technology to keep and STEM. And so clearly, if that were not successful, then there would be another layer of cuts that would just have to happen.
So what decade do you project that we will actually have free money? You don't need to answer that.
Never.
Thank you.
Never free.
Mrs. White.
It's no surprise that CSBA has some arguments with this budget that he's proposed. And one of their real concerns is that he's proposing to pay off the unfunded mandates in 1 year instead of 2. And if he would pay it off in 2, there would be some one-time money to give another down payment on the cost of Common Core. So that's the major pitch of CSBA in that area, and they have some hope. But the business about the STIRS is really scary. $600,000 is only this year. Go up even next year. And you know, before we had LCFF, we had base revenue limits, and when they raised the cost of PERS and STIRS, we got money to backfill. You know, they raised the base revenue limit so that it was of no real cost to districts. And this is a fundamental basic change in the way we're doing business. And it is indeed scary, because there's no proposal to increase the LCFF base grant to in any way counteract this increase in responsibilities.
And there's also the rainy day fund idea, which as superintendents, many of us have said, well, we've been rained on, it's raining. I don't know what we're, the rainy day is for usually when things are good and you put it aside, but we're not out of the woods. And so, at least from our district standpoint, there's a drought outside, but we would deserve a rainy day break. And so there will be AXAs also mobilizing with their arguments, and so CSBA has a voice, and I think we'll be bringing forward that just to give people a little reality check.
And the whole subject of adequate funding, it comes up too.
Yeah, adequacy
we're still only
is
49th
well, and there are some say that Prop 98 itself demands that California funding be within the top 10 of the country. And in fact, we're 50th. So Prop 98 is not fulfilling its mandated responsibilities. And we just have elected people that are willing to choose that the 8th greatest economy in the world has the 50th level of funding for schools. And we choose to do this every year.
Frustration. That's my word.
That's a
Frustration. I mean, we knew it was coming. There's no way to sugarcoat it. When you look at an $80 billion shortfall, you know that we're going to get hit with it. And I guess in a way I'm relieved that the governor's finally putting a percentage on it. Because when you look at the change in what the state, the employee, and the employer are paying, it's over 16% that we're talking about. 16% of base payroll has to be going to pay off pension shortfalls. I mean, it's basically a pension credit card. We've been running up a bill on our MasterCard, and we've not been paying it. And now we're saying it's going to take 16% of our monthly income to pay off the accrued credit card bill. And we're not going to have it paid off until 2045. 2045, paying 16% of our income out to this credit card bill that's been run up. And so I guess, this is just another one of my frustrations about fiscal transparency, that this has been a growing problem. It's been unacknowledged in general. And they're finally this year putting numbers on it, and the numbers are astounding. And what it means is there will be no money for raises until 16% comes to us that we can, our portion, 13%, comes. before employees will have any money available to them. And that's just mind-boggling. I don't know. I guess I'm glad that they're finally doing it, because if they waited till next year, it'd be 17 or 18 or 19 or 20. But they've waited way too long to acknowledge the reality, and I hope that we're going to have truth in budgeting going forward from Sacramento. You know, we don't run our books this way. We don't have unfunded liabilities on our books. We're paying the employee health care for retirees that we have between retirement age and when they become Medicare eligible. We've reserved that money, and it's in a special fund. And if you're going to give somebody a pension promise, then you need to be funding that at whatever the actuaries tell you it takes to pay that off. Because I want you all, when you retire, to have your retirement safe and sound. And what they're telling us is this is what it's going to take. And it's very frustrating that it got this big before they acknowledged the reality. So thanks for giving us the news. And, you know, I want to meet somebody from Sacramento and tell them what I think of their delaying tactics. Anyway, that was just for information, and so that'll take us to the next action item, which would be the declaration of need for fully qualified educators. Would you like to introduce that item?
Certainly. I'll ask Mrs. Yolanda Holmes, our Executive Director of Human Resources, to come up to the podium, and she will present to you the declaration and ask for board approval.
Good evening, President Runyon, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers. This evening I come to you with the annual declaration of need, which is a discussion action item, which allows us as an employing agency to have qualified educators be hired if they're not fully credentialed in an area of need. The role of human resources for our district is to first, of course, recruit fully credentialed teachers, to use the various marketing tools for which we've done this year. We've had our district recruitment fair, which was very successful. We utilized the EdJoin posting app, which is a nationwide application for recruitment, for which the majority of educators look at if they're seeking employment. We've also made our usual connections with our local colleges and universities in terms of our recruitment and hiring needs last year, and we've moved forward to do the same this year. And so that allows us to then screen the applicant pool and oversee the hiring process as our candidates are vetted forward for the principals to review. Emergency permits are only valid in areas during the school year, so that's why this is an annual event, that it needs to come back for board's review and information. The fully qualified educator is adopted by the board, and this document remains on file. To give you a view of this school year, 13-14, and then what we're looking at for next year, which is the reason we bring the information forward, the estimated number of permits we requested for 13-14 for CLAD was 3 and for B-CLAD 1. We actually utilized permits this year, 3 for CLAD and 1 for B-CLAD. In the area of estimated permits for next year, for 14-15, again, we're asking for, or recommending 3 CLAD and 1 B-CLAD. In the area of limited assignment permits, they're issued only to applicants who hold a valid California teaching credential, but we may need them to teach in another subject area if we're unable to fill that particular subject area. And so it is a credential based on their baccalaureate degree and the completion of professional preparation for programs in which includes student teaching. And so this school year in 13-14, we had estimated in multiple subject we would need none, and we did not utilize limited assignment. That's one of the more successful credentials going through our educational system, for which we have a lot of graduates to select from. In the areas of single subject, we estimated 3, we utilized 3, and this coming school year, we're estimating 3. In the area of education specialist, for this school year, we had estimated 3, we utilized 1, and for the coming school year, once again, we're estimating 3. In terms of the interns for 13-14, we estimated 10. We actually utilized 10 or had hired 10 interns, and the permits for next year 15. So I'd like to pause there just for a moment to give you a reflective kind of data about what happened in the areas of our use of the limited assignment as well as our interns. So in the 13-14 school year, we have 9 resignations, and of those, resource specialists, SDC, and speech pathologists. And we also have, in the area of resource specialists, speech, and speech pathologists, we have 3 going on leaves of absence. One of the good news items is that our schools and universities have listened to school districts to say that's an underserved area in terms of individuals earning their credential. Through our recruitment fair and outreach, we've been able to attract, and we hope now to retain, as you've seen through our induction program, some new upcoming special ed professionals in that area. In the 12-13 school year, for which we had requested the last declaration of need, actually 7 of those individuals were resourced in terms of the interns, and 7 were SDC, and 2 were speech pathologists. So we've been able to, now they're moving on their career path, the 2nd year probationary, and we hope again to retain. So that's how we came up with this year, looking at the number of openings that we have being 12 in a hard to fill area being the primary area, and then seeing the new candidates coming through our universities with those earned or on their way to earning those credentials. The verification of need is that the employing agency must certify the recruitment practices and estimate the staffing for declaration of need. The declaration of need form serves as a verification that there is a need to hire individuals who are not fully credentialed. That is never our intent, but again, looking ahead this year at our openings and in the areas that are hard to fill, we came up with our estimate. The superintendent's recommendation this evening is to adopt the declaration of need for fully qualified educators for the 14-15 school year.
Are there any comments, questions? Mr. Vernoy, did you have a question? Okay. All right, if I could have a motion.
I'll move that we adopt a declaration of need for fully qualified educators for the following school year.
I'll second.
Mr. Rogie, will you call the roll?
Yes. Mrs. White?
Aye.
Dr. Dunlop?
Aye.
Myself, aye. President Runyon?
Aye. And that brings us to board policies.
So I'll ask Mr. Scott Vernoy, our Director of Student Services, to join us, and he will be presenting to you for first reading a policy from Series 1000.
Good evening, Madam President, Superintendent Bowers, and members of our board. Tonight I present for first reading from Series 1000. It was first posted on May 12th, and first reading will occur tonight. I bring to you Board Policy 1312.3, Uniform Complaint Procedures. This is familiar to you. It's because it is the third time that I brought it to you in the last year due to revisions needed. This is a revision of an existing board policy. The Uniform Complaint Procedure defines the district's obligation to investigate complaints alleging failure to comply with state and federal laws and regulations governing the educational program. Tonight we are taking direction from the state, and we are proposing suggested changes to the UCP to meet requirements for complaints involving our local control funding formula. We are adding 7 words to this paragraph. As you could see, the uniform complaint procedures shall be used to address any complaint alleging the district's failure to comply with a list of things and state and federal laws in adult education programs. Implementation of local control funding formula was the addition. Consolidated categorical programs, migrant education, career technical and technical education, training programs, child care and development programs, to name a few. We have also received feedback on standardizing of the policy format. So each time as we move forward, we will be standardizing the format that is given to you. Such things are the bolding of subheadings, the aligning of numbers in similar fashion, and these will be reflected in the second reading.
Any questions? Oh, Dr.
Let me
Dunn.
comment. Since I couldn't find anything to complain about other than the formatting, it's my fault. But I think that will be a nice improvement for other people who may read through that to see it's all in a similar format eventually.
All right, if there are no other questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve the first reading of Board Policy Series 1000.
Second.
I'll second it.
Mr. Rogie, will you call the roll?
Dr. Dunlop.
Aye.
Mrs. White.
Aye.
Myself, aye. President Runyon.
Aye. And that brings us to the consent items. Did any board member want to pull an item for separate consideration? If not, I'll entertain a motion on the entire list.
Okay, I'll move that we approve the consent items A through I.
L.
L. Yeah, okay.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Rogie?
Dr. Dunlop.
Aye.
Myself, aye. Mrs. White.
Aye.
President Runyon.
Aye. And that brings us to our single resolution for tonight. And do I have a motion on this item?
I'll move that we approve SEP Resolution 065-13/14.
And probably a comment, this is a number of people who have served this district for a long, long, long time. And so we again want to thank them for, being with us, doing a tremendous job for the students in the district, and wish them the best in whatever they're doing now, which hopefully is going to be a lot of fun for them.
Thank you. And was that also a second?
And a second, yes.
Thank you. And Mr. Rogie, if you'll call the roll.
Dr. Dunlop.
Aye.
Myself, aye. Mrs. White.
Aye.
President Runyon.
Aye. And who'd like to go first on board member reports? Mrs. White. Go ahead.
The last couple of weeks have been spent watching students get awards, giving students awards, giving awards, watching awards to staff, teachers, classified administrators, scholar athletes, and I just can't mention them all. I'm still looking forward to the retirement reception later this week and principal for a day. As I said before, I spent this past weekend at CSBA events, both the Board of Directors meeting and a delegate assembly. Ben Johnson of Alvord Unified School District in Riverside County gave the inspiration at the delegate assembly. His story reminded us all that it is not just what we say and do here at the board table that has a lasting impression. Ben related that he recently met a young woman who had been a member of a graduating class where he had spoken. She was delighted to see him. She said that his remarks had really struck a chord with her and continued to have an impact on her life. He glowed as he spoke about it. At this time of year, I mightily regret the part I played years ago in our change of practice from having board members speaking at commencement to our current practice of being guests at graduation. I miss the opportunity to speak for ourselves and have a lasting impact on our students. Thank you.
Dr. Dunlop.
I'm having trouble pushing the button here today. I want to comment that you see us all wearing pins saying with to vote for Measure G. And we'd like to remind everyone to do that, whether you do it as an absentee ballot, whether you do it as a mail-in ballot, or you go and actually leave your ballot. Please go and vote for Measure G. And we thank Mrs. White for making us all appropriately decked out for tonight's meeting. Other than that, it has been it's always an interesting time of year when we get to go see awards, and this Sunday went to one where the Mormon Church the students were recognizing teachers from the high school. And I always think that's really very, very nice to go to, because these are teachers that the students select because they have done something well for them and they've enjoyed the class and they've gotten what they think is something really positive out of it. So it was very nice to go and see those awards and see how enthused the students were with what had happened in the schools and what they had learned. Other than that, I will make it short.
Mr. Rogie.
Well, I had the opportunity to go to Livermore High School for their Merit Awards on Wednesday morning last week, or week before last. And my minions, Peyton and Morgan, assisted me handing out the awards. But what was notable was we went to one math class. We had a lot of awards to give out in this one math class, and there was nobody in the math class. They were all taking the AP math test. So I said, well, I can see why we have a lot of awards, and that takes care of that. So that was very, very interesting to see and refreshing to see. I also went to the Make a Difference Awards in Dublin. This year was held in Dublin, usually held in Amador. We got to see why Dublin's student union is so nice and glorious, because they have lots of money, and we were going to try to take their big screen TVs, but Superintendent Bowers wasn't going to let me do that. They had it was a really great awards assembly. The kids were definitely just excited to nominate and give the award to their helpers and their assistants. One girl, one mother came up and approached me and says, "Do you remember me? I'm Sean's mom." And I had to take a second. I went, "Oh, yes." Well, Sean was one of my throwers 3 years ago. She was in special ed. And now she is getting an award because she now has turned and is helping other kids in this area. And she looked wonderful and was very excited. It was a great feeling to see her steer her life that direction. And I think we'll just cut it off at that.
I agree with Mrs. White. We've had an extraordinary number of events in the last couple of weeks. So many end-of-year activities recognizing the hard work of students and staff all the way through the district. And, most of the year this is a little bit lighter obligation, but I had one day where started with an intergovernmental breakfast at 7:30 in the morning and didn't finish up until 7 o'clock dinner for another thing. And it is hard to get to all these things and then layer on activities for our parcel tax renewal. And I join with my fellow board members in hoping that everyone out there gets out to vote, and don't expect that because it's polled well that it's just going to pass. It's polled well in other districts and missed by a few votes because we weren't able to other people were not able to turn out their voters. So it's crucially important that everyone that believes in education goes ahead and casts their ballot. So I'm begging you to get that done. And I did have one item that I wanted to share from intergovernmental, and that's the water situation in the valley. Asked the city government representative what the status was on water, and he said that it was actually dire, that we had actually been able to fill Lake Del Val by pulling from lakes further down the chain, that it usually goes from the Delta to Del Val and then passes through to other water districts. And we were able to buy back some water from other water districts and back pump water to fill Del Val. But now the intake pipe from the Delta is above the water line. And that with the water that we have underground and in Del Val, we'll be completely out of water in 2 years. So when they ask you to cut back on your water usage, they're saying it for an extremely good reason, that in 2 years we may have no water whatsoever. And so be judicious in your use of water. And with that, I turned over to the superintendent.
Thank you very much. So it is actually a very busy time of year, but the events are all so special, and they involve a lot of recognition of our staff and our students. And I think that at the end of it, it is, to echo one of the words of one of our teachers here tonight, exhilarating, and it's rejuvenating, even though it can be, as one of the other teachers said, exhausting. So I did have the honor, along with Trustee Runyon, of attending the Rotary Educator and Principal of the Year luncheon, and it was such a special occasion. Rotary is an amazing partner to our schools, and the awards were very well deserved. Each principal had a unique comment that was shared. They weren't able to come to the luncheon because the principals were sometimes covering the classes so the teachers could attend, but it's a very special moment, and then they get to have lunch with everybody. And then we also, I had the privilege and pleasure of speaking about Laura Lembo, Dr. Laura Lembo, who was from our IB program, and she was our Principal of the Year. It is on video, and it'll be on our website if anybody wants to relive the moments, because it's very exciting to see how humble our very best teachers are, and for all the wonderful things they do. And they're representative of a larger group. Many of us attended the Livermore Management Awards breakfast. We honored outstanding staff in multiple categories and community members, including our own Mr. Chris Van Schack, who received the President's Award. And he's been acting very presidential ever since. There you go. All of Cabinet had the pleasure to host ice cream socials, and we served ice cream sundaes to every staff member at Maryland Avenue and Granada High. So it was a larger staff at Granada as part of the award from the beginning of the year kickoff celebration. And it actually was one of the warmest weeks in the year, so it worked out very well. I'm in charge of whipped cream. So that's about all I can handle, I think. So we also held our last Parent Club Information Council meeting of the year. It was very well attended. Trustee White was present, and I'm very pleased to report that Mrs. Ellen Gould, who is our chairperson, and she does an amazing job with a very lively group of folks, she is going to continue on as the chairperson of that wonderful group. So we look forward to more from them. Along with Trustee Rogie, as he mentioned, we were part of the SELPA Make a Difference Awards. And I do have to say the venue was amazing. It was at Dublin High School. They did have incredible technology going, but then their microphone went out. So I felt a little bit better that it's not just us. And it took them a while, but we were very patient. And it is really incredible. I had never had the opportunity to go to that event because it usually coincides with another event, which is our retirement reception. And I didn't really know what to expect. It was so heartwarming and sentimental because the students themselves, the special needs students and their families, personally nominate and speak and present, those who are verbal, if not they're part of it, they present to the teachers or the special ed assistant who made a total difference in their lives. So it was very emotional and exciting. And our Granada Shooting Stars performed, and they were just the biggest hit. So everybody got to see them. Most of us here attended the California School Employee Association potluck. It was very lively. It was for a very good cause. So in addition to all of the camaraderie and the goodwill, student scholarships were funded, and the Veterans Hospital also was the cause. And people were in very interesting costumes. So we happened to be G for Measure G, if I can say that. That was our costume. Granada, G, Granada. And then also, I had the opportunity with my husband to attend the Mitchell K-8 Multicultural Night on Friday, and that was really well attended, not just from the Mitchell community, but there were clearly students from all over because they had, they're wearing shirts from different schools, even out of the area. So it was an experience. There was African drumming, Hindu dancing, folklorico dancing, mariachis, square dancing, singing, foods and booths from a variety of cultures, and even different parts of the United States. So Mrs. Robbins had to leave, but there was a booth of chili from Kentucky, and I thought of her. And then there were Danishes and all these different things. So we ate a lot of food, and the students had a chance they had passports, and they went from country and booth and international area to area, and then they received stamps. And they will, after they complete their passports and their experiences, then they will receive a bumper sticker. And so often you will see bumper stickers that say, I'm the proud parent of an honor roll student. Theirs will say, with the multicultural theme, I'm the proud parent of either a globally minded or multiculturally educated student. So very unique. I also had the opportunity, along with Trustee Dunlop and Trustee White, to attend the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints You Make a Difference Awards. And this is where Granada teacher, chemistry teacher Sheila Jurek, and Livermore High School teacher Dean McNair were both honored. And the students selected the recipients and they awarded them. And that was also special because the teachers, they really teared up, and it meant a lot. They do a slideshow of their life. And we also, last but not least, Rob, my husband, and I, the trustees White and Rogie, because he's also a coach, we attended the Livermore High Granada High Booster Award Banquet, and the Olympiad Scholar athletes were awarded. There was a rival video that's shown, which is always very exciting and gets everyone really riled up. And they also introduced the newly inducted Hall of Famers. And so it was a great event. We want to thank Mr. Mike Nagel and the rest of the boosters for their continued generosity and support of our students. It is really an amazing event. And then tomorrow, just reminders, more events coming. The retirement reception, Thursday's open house. The weekend is full of Granada High 50th celebrations, and there's probably more that I'm forgetting. FFA, yes, the Future Farmers of America has their banquet also after the retirement reception. So it's a whirlwind, but it is exciting. And thank you, everyone, for taking the time to be present and supportive of everything.
And we are adjourned at 11 minutes till 10. Thank you.
Did you want me to talk until 10?